Okay, in this video, I'm going to discuss output statements. So, we're going to be using cout, and cout is an object that comes from the standard namespace, followed by, this is called the stream insertion operator. That's really kind of a long name for that. It's got to be two less than signs right next to each other. Can't be any spaces in between. I'm going to be referring to this guy here as the output operator because that's what it's used for. And then, we can output string. It's got to be enclosed in double quotes like this. And put a semicolon at the end of the statement. And if we run it, that will just display to the screen. See, programming is fun. Okay, so if we do want to leave any blank lines, we can use the \n, which is a new line character. We can use an endl. I'm just going to do this. And that will just put a blank line between programming and is fun. Now notice there's a space here before the letter I. And then you'll see over here, programming down to the next line, space is fun. So anytime you put spaces inside of the double quotes in the string, you'll actually see those spaces appear on the screen. If you look over here, when this runs, you'll see all these spaces in between programming because I have spaces in my string. So if you do need any spaces to kind of make things look nicer on the output screen, you can do that. Putting spaces here or here, oops, any place that does really nothing. This is going to look exactly like it did before. It's only when you put spaces inside of the double quotes where it will appear on the screen. Okay, so let me just kind of get things back in order here. So in this section, in Chapter 2, we've also learned about data types, and data types are important because anytime you create a variable that has to store information in your program, you have to tell the compiler what type of data it is. So we look at like int, double, char, and string. Those are probably the four that you'll use most frequently. Int has a lot of, it has int, it has short, long, unsigned int, but really for the most part, we'll be using, int. So let me just make a variable here, x, or double, y, char, or string, right? And these are our data types that have been introduced, and now we have variables of this type. So once you have a variable of that type, you can put a value in that variable. Like I can use x is assign the value of 5, excuse me. Y is assign the value of, let's say, 6.6, right? That's a double. CH is assign the value of question mark. Now characters are enclosed in single quotes. Name is assign the value of, put that in double quotes. All right. Also, when we start doing more with strings, you're going to have to make sure you include the string library as well. So these are the primary data types that we'll be using. Again, sometimes when you start to do more advanced things with strings, you're going to need to include the string library in your program. Not all compilers always require you. Some allow you to use this stuff in the string library without putting the include statement. The only other thing I want to show you is if we talk about variables here, like if I output, for instance, x, this is a variable in my program, so it's not going to output x, it's going to output the contents of x, which is, in this case, a 5. And I think I'm going to come up here and put an endl just so it's on the next line. So let me do that again, sorry. So you'll see right here this little 5, that's the contents of x. So if I do this, this is the string X, and this is the variable X, so this is going to display whatever's inside the double quotes, and this is going to display the contents of that variable. So here you can see X, all right, that's the string, and then you can see the contents of X, which is 5. So we can say X is, we could do something like that, maybe put an endl at the end. And I like to put spaces on either side of these operators just because it makes your code look neater. And then you see X is 5. So you just have to be careful. If something's inside double quotes, whatever's in the double quotes is going to display exactly as is. And if something is a variable, right, it's going to display the contents of that variable. And again, I'll just show you one more line of code here. You can see why. Right, and y is 6.6. So we're not going to worry too much about how numbers are formatted at this point. We'll get more into formatting numbers and output when we get into the next chapter, but just know you can make things look different by adjusting the spacing that's inside of the double quotes. See, and now you see those extra spaces in here. All right, and that's a little bit more about output statements and variables.